Okay, hello folks. How you guys doing? Hello everybody. My name is Mark. This is Why I Hate the World. What's happening? Today is July 31st, 2021, and we've got a lot of stuff to talk about today. First off, I want to talk a little bit about the Olympics, actually. I want to talk a little about what's going on with Simon Bells, and then the meat of our discussion is going to be about evictions. So, but first, before we get into any of that, let's take a look at what we're working on today. So I think it's coming along, our little Smurfs versus Oompa Loompa battle, right? Yeah, I don't know. Kind of, I think the Smurfs are probably going to end up winning here. Anyway, so yeah, let's jump right into it. So, Simon Bells, that kind of caught my attention this past week. And I won't spend too much time on this, but I did kind of want to make a little bit of a comment here. So she is a gymnast, right? Who, from all appearances, seems to be like most likely the greatest gymnast who's like currently alive today, and who's kind of placed first in like multiple competitions around the world and stuff like that. And the big news is that she was ready to compete in the Olympics and decided to back out, citing mental health concerns, And apparently, like, she competed a little bit and didn't do as well as she thought, and got a little injured and just wasn't on her game, and decided to, rather than compete and blow it and humiliate herself, decided to just not go for it. Chulo Mudfoot, how you doing, man? We'll talk about that in a minute. We will talk about the in a minute. Give me about 10 minutes, and then we'll move on to the rents. The rents and the eviction crisis, right? Anyway, yeah, and I just wanted to, I wanted to bring this up because it kind of reminded me a lot, actually, of just kind of every time a black athlete specifically does anything like that deviates from like the normal behavior for what's expected of athletes, people tend to go really crazy. And they only really seem to do this when black athletes do this, Like, I really do think that if Simon Biles was white, this wouldn't even have hit the news, like, at all. The fact that she decided not to compete. She dropped out of the Olympics, right? Because athletes drop out of competitions all the time, including the Olympics, for multiple reasons. For whatever reason it is, whether they get sick, they can't handle it that day, blah blah blah, whatever. All kinds of reasons why that you would choose not to compete. And I think it really just kind of blew up in the news because she's black, and there's a certain segment of our population that really seems to enjoy it when people who are black and also successful, get knocked down a peg. You know what I mean? So there was this one thing I wanted to bring up here was, this is Charlie Kirk talking about, Simon Bells here. And I know I don't want to infect Charlie Kirk on you guys because, he's a cancer. Right? But still, I think that this is illuminating. So this is Charlie Kirk here. Let me just make this bigger, right? And we're going to listen to his comments on the reason, why this Olympic athlete decided not to compete. Let's see what Charlie Kirk has to say about this. All right.
So Simone Biles, who's obviously a very talented gymnast, decided not to compete in the gold medal competition. Now, she probably could have just competed and just kind of checked the boxes, and they would have got a gold medal.
So what does that mean when he just said that? Listen to what he just said. Okay, she could have just checked the boxes. She could have just competed and checked the boxes, and they would have gave her a gold medal, right? What's he trying to say there? That what they would give her a gold medal just because she's black? Is that what it is? You always notice with people like this, they always have to throw in those little digs, to say that she doesn't deserve what she earned because of her color, right? This is always, they try to do the same thing to like Barack Obama when they were saying that, like, there was this conspiracy theory that he didn't earn his college degree or whatever, you know. And this was actually, if you remember, way back before Obama became president, it was something that Trump was trying to do. Trump was trying to say, like, I want to see his college records. He's just a big phony. I want to see his college records, blah, blah, blah. In the meantime, Donald Trump, like, basically threatened to, like, ruin the life of anybody who leaked his school records, his own school records, because, they were abysmal and all that shit. We can talk about that later. So it's sort of like that, So I just noticed that little dig. I've noticed that nobody else has really commented on that. That little dig that he just threw in there, like, oh yeah, they would just give her a gold medal just for competing. That idea that liberals and stuff don't hold people to their to their performance, and that you'll just get a participation trophy and shit like that. It's like, no, man, they don't do that in the Olympics. You don't get a gold medal in the Olympics for just showing up. All right. But of course, to this asshole and his worldview, he's got to throw that in there. It's just bait for his base that has no basis in fucking reality. Anyway, moving on.
Simone Biles says, this Olympic Games, I wanted to be for myself when I came in, and I felt like I was still doing it for other people, as she cried after the team event on Tuesday. So it hurts my heart, because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you selfish sociopath.
Yeah, so you should never do anything in your life ever that you're not comfortable with, solely for the reason of other people. That isn't something that is like life-threatening. You know what I mean? Like, generally in your life, unless it's something that is going to directly result in the death or injury of another person, and you're not comfortable doing it, you should not do it. Like, what I'm saying is, like, if a building's burning down and there's somebody inside, that'll make you uncomfortable to run in there and save them. That's different. That's different than, competing in a competition for, because you don't want to. If you don't want to do something, then don't do it. Right? If Charlie Kirk right here didn't want to do his show one day, he'd take the day off. Okay? That's what he would do. All right? I'm pretty sure that Charlie Kirk would refuse to do anything for any reason because he felt like it. And if other people wanted it, he'd probably tell them to go piss up a rope. Yet when this person, when Simone Biles here, feels like she's not going to be able to do her best and decides not to compete, suddenly it's this national fucking tragedy. It's ridiculous. And let's remember that, the gymnasts went on to win gold medals anyway. So, right? So it's sort of like they did fine without her. And if anybody, it humiliates her. It doesn't humiliate everybody else. It's like Olympic athletes, yeah, the Olympics, okay, you're there, you're representing your country, you have pride for your country, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't mean that if you bail or if you screw up, then America sucks. That's not what the Olympics mean. It's, the Americans only scored, they only got bronze medals in this event, so America must suck. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. Anybody who thinks like that is a moron. So, I guess, this is Charlie Kirk we're talking about, so of course he's a fucking moron. Anyway.
You kidding me? Today it's like, you know what? I'm not going to do something stupid and get hurt. It's just not worth it. Especially when you have like 3 amazing athletes that can step up to the plate and do it. So you know who has the gold medal? Russia.
Yeah, that's not what happened, but of course, this is hindsight. But, see, the thing is, she was correct. 3 other athletes did step up, and they did win the gold. So what's the fucking problem? If that's your problem, if your problem is that it makes America look bad when we don't win gold medals in the Olympics, well, the other athletes won the gold medals in the Olympics. So what's your problem? So obviously his problem is not that. And in real life, his problem is because Simone Biles is black. And he's feeding to his audience an opportunity to push down a black person. He even said it right there when he accidentally called her selfless. Let's rewind that a little bit, right?
Like hurts my heart because doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please other people. Yeah, that's the point, Simone Biles. You're representing your nation, you're selfish socio.
See, he couldn't even say it right. You selfless. See, and that just kind of shows that he doesn't even really believe this shit himself. You know, he's reading. First off, he's reading it off of a script, so this is not coming from the heart here. This is some shit that somebody else wrote for him. Number one. Number two, it's like he's not even like he doesn't even really care himself. He's doing this so that the people who watch his show can, like, you know, basically get angry at a black person because there's a successful black person who was like a top level athlete, probably the best in the fucking world, right? And they want to push her down a little bit because they're racist assholes. And it's like he knows it. He knows this is where his bread is buttered, with a bunch of racist assholes. Anyway.
Plate and do it. So you know who has the gold medal? Russia. Russia. I have to go look at these 4'11" Russian Olympians chewing on their gold medals, smirking at the Americans. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, you are. Because he doesn't actually give a shit. Right? And if he really gave a fuck about Russia, I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we could have said over the last 4 years about Trump and Russia, you know? We could bring all that up. He obviously doesn't give a fuck about Russia or Putin or anything like that. You know, what he cares about is, you know, this black person who was in the Olympics, dared, right, to actually express her opinions, right, and, you know, not allow the pressure to force her to do something that she didn't want to do. It's because, you know, that's the thing with people like Charlie Kirk and just all, you know, they're angry at, because they think that representation of minorities, of marginalized groups, somehow infringes upon their superiority. That's what it is. They're afraid that if they see, you know, this is what you always see, like people like Gamergate people and all that shit. You know, they're afraid that if they see like, you know, if they see a successful black person, then that must mean that white people are being pushed down. That white people must be inferior. That's what it is, and it comes from, it's basically an inferiority complex. Right. It's when a narcissist can't stand it when other people, you know, get the attention. Like Donald Trump. Donald Trump couldn't handle it when somebody else was in the news and it wasn't him. Like, you remember fucking Scaramucci, that guy that Donald Trump hires, and then Scaramucci goes on the news and everybody's talking about Scaramucci, and a week later he fires Scaramucci. Why? After a week, because he kept stealing the headlines. That's the only fucking reason. It's the same kind of, that same kind of inferiority kind of complexes. If we have successful minorities, successful women, successful black people, people of color, right, who are out there, who are successful, who are doing it right, who are making money and being famous, shit like that, then that must mean people like Charlie Kirk, white men, right, are not famous anymore. That's exactly what it is. You know, that must mean that they're not prominent, that they're not the ones making the decisions. And it's that inferiority complex, that inability to understand that, you know, we're all in this together. It's like they have to be on top, because if they're not on top, then that must mean that they're being trampled underfoot. That must mean that they're the oppressed ones. If they're not the ones who are oppressing people, that must mean that they're the oppressed ones. And it's a flaw in conservative thinking. Anyway, let's move on.
But
it's
honestly,
almost over.
That's where we're headed. We are raising a generation of weak people like Simone Biles. Again, if you want to be...
Yeah, weak. She decided not to compete because she couldn't do her best. That must mean that she's weak. You know, it's actually kind of somewhat mature to step aside when you know that you're not going to be able to deliver. You know? That's actually a very mature thing, to be able to say, hey, I can't do this. It's not going to happen, right? Rather than try to do it, and when you know you're going to fail, if your heart's not in it, you know. And that's the thing, it's just pretending that this isn't the Olympics, right? just any job that you have, any job that you have that you do for money, right? If your heart's not in it, then you shouldn't be doing that job. You know, if you work at a place somewhere, let's turn this shit off, okay? Fuck Charlie Kirk. He's a fucking moron. Get the fuck out of here, Charlie Kirk. Right? If you work at a job or something like that, if you work someplace, if you, whatever you do, and you don't enjoy doing that, then you should really not be doing it. You work in a restaurant someplace, your boss is a dick, get a different job. You work in an office somewhere, right? The company you work for sucks, right? They overwork you, they don't pay you enough. If you're not happy, don't do it. That's ultimately, you know why? Because it's your life and you get to decide what you want to do. So, and the thing about this whole situation, right, is there's nobody who probably feels worse than Simone Biles. You know, I mean, think about that. You train your ass off, you get on the Olympics. In the Olympics, which is probably like, that's like a dream come true for like gymnasts and athletes of all stripes. It's like, holy shit, I'm gonna win a gold medal on the Olympics. I'm gonna be like on the cover of the fucking Sports Illustrated. I'm gonna like, I'm gonna be like on the Wheaties box and shit with my like gold medal. That's like a dream come true for Olympics. So nobody wants that more than Simone Biles, and the fact that she felt she couldn't do it, you know, I think, and then decided to bow out. It's like, do you want her there if she's not going to be able to do her best? You know, of course not, and nobody would have gave a shit. Nobody, it wouldn't, just remember, it would not have even have been in the news, and Charlie Kirk wouldn't be talking about it, and all these people on Twitter wouldn't be tweeting about it if she was a white person. The same way that a month ago when Gwen Berry, right, didn't face the flag, right? It's the exact same fucking thing, right? It's the same thing as that. It's the same thing as when Colin Kaepernick decided to fucking kneel, right, before every game. Remember Tim Tebow? Tim Tebow would kneel before every game too. Of course, they let him get away with it because he was praying to Jesus. But the real reason they let him get away with it is because he was white. Okay, if Tim Tebow was black and he was praying to Jesus before every game, people would have lost their fucking minds over it. All right, and that's the goddamn truth. So, anyway, it's all bullshit. People like Charlie Kirk, they're fucking outrage merchants. Right, and that's what he deals in. That's his commodity, is that he deals in outrage, and he's got to find something to be fucking outraged about. And it's like, his target happens to be women and people of color in general. So fuck Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk is one of the worst people who's like alive. Like, seriously, he's a guy that like his entire like business model is to go around and just like fuck with young children's minds and shit in high schools and everything like that. I don't know. Anyway, so I wanted to start with that because I thought that was interesting. Another example of our two-tiered society where some people are considered Americans and others aren't just because of, the color of their skin or whatnot. The main meat of the subject I wanted to talk about today, of course, is the eviction crisis. And I can see from our comments that we've gotten so far that some people feel pretty strongly about the eviction crisis, right? So let's start with actually reading your comments here, Chulo. Chulo Mudfoot. For 18 months you knew this was coming and yet you chose not to work. You didn't use the stimulus money to pay rent. You went out and bought cars, phones, bling, and went on vacation. Back rent due, pay up or get out. So, to answer your first comment there, right, nobody chooses not to work. Okay, not this time. All right. Now, your answer to that is, of course, there will be people who always are, will take advantage of the system, right? Most of the time, and yes, that's true, but that's a very small number of people, Most people out there want to work, want to make money. You know why? Because they want to have the house and the car and the 2.5 kids and the middle class lifestyle. That's what they want. Most people probably aren't even thinking about being super rich one day or whatever. Not really. Most of them just want to be able to pay their bills and take care of their families, right? So the thing is that when you have a pandemic like we are in, right now, right, where they lock everything down, that's different than just your usual unemployment. Okay, it's one thing to just be unemployed and not be able to find a job. All right, it's another thing that when you're unemployed during a fucking pandemic, and I know all about this because for 6 months last year I was unemployed during the pandemic. All right, I lost my job in right January 1st of 2020. Right before the pandemic hit. And then as I'm out there interviewing, right, stuff like that, they lock everything down. There was a place that wanted to hire me in late February, and they suddenly had a hiring freeze because of the pandemic, right? And I eventually got the job at that place. That's where I work now. I got it in July. So for 6 months, and I applied to literally probably 1,000 places in those 6 months, right? Nobody was hiring. All right. And that's the thing. It's like, so this time you can't really call people lazy. You can't say, oh, you chose not to work, right? You bought bling and you bought cars and phones. First off, nobody can buy a goddamn car with $600, or 14. They gave us one stimulus for $600, one for $1,400, you know and then unemployment, you got an extra I got an extra $150 for unemployment that I would usually not get. And I gotta say that extra $150 saved my ass. Okay, I'm happy to get it. I went on unemployment. Yeah, of course, for the first time in my life I went on unemployment, and it saved my fucking ass. It actually helped me to not, like, because of that I didn't have to, like, empty all of my savings. I still have savings. I actually have, like, a significant amount of money saved up, and I was using it, but unemployment insurance is there for this reason, and so I didn't have to use all my savings, which was nice. So I never, I ended up not, like, getting behind on stuff on my mortgage, shit like that, and it was because the social safety net that's there for that reason. you know Thank God it was there. I mean, I probably would have been okay without it, but then I'm thinking, like, well, how many people out there are not in my situation, right? Because I actually have money. I have money saved, and plus my wife works, so she's got money. And how many other people out there aren't in that position where they don't have, you know, a year's pay saved up, right? Where they don't have, like, someone they can depend on. A lot. A lot of people out there are in pretty bad. Most people in the country can't, can't afford a $400 bill that comes unexpectedly. Most people can't afford that, right? Most people are screwed, for example, if their car breaks down. The fucking timing belt breaks or some shit like that, and they can't, like, use their car or whatever, right? Or the alternator breaks or something, right? And they're fucked, and they can't drive. And then they can't drive, so they can't get to work, right? Because most cities in the country don't have sufficient public transportation, right? So it's like, then you can't work, so you can't get money to fix your car, and then suddenly you're fucked. And it's like, well, what are you going to do? You know? And that can lead, a small little thing like that, like your car breaking down, for some people can spurn a chain of events which makes them end up being homeless, you know? Because some people don't have friends and family that they can depend on. Some people don't have, like, you know, some people don't have that safety, like, that network of people that they can depend on for help. It's like, you always think, oh, well, I'll just go stay at my dad's place or something. Like, if I get kicked out, or I'll go stay at my aunt's place or whatever. Some people don't have that. All right, some people live in a state that's completely far away from their families. Some people are immigrants that have come from another country. Some people just hate their relatives and just don't want to be around them, and whatever. Maybe they're abusive, maybe they're drug addicts or something, their relatives or whatever. They don't want to be around them. They can't depend on them, right? And what are those people supposed to do if they lose their jobs and they can't get another one during a fucking pandemic? you know so this is what rent assistance is supposed to be there for, you know because the country was shut down for a year, right? Places weren't hiring for like months and months and months, but you still got to pay your rent. You still have to eat, right? You still have to do all of these things. Well, and especially when the state is enforcing these things, when the state says you have to shut things down. Things like restaurants, multiple restaurants in my area went out of business. I live in a rich area. My area here, it's nice. Okay. It's very, very, upper middle class. All right. I mean, I'm not rich. I wish I was. I live in kind of a, but I'm saying though, it's like I don't live in a fucking ghetto. And even where I live in this area, like businesses were going out of business and shit like that. And it's like, dude, if you drive around the rest of Los Angeles, it's way worse. There's like fucking shanty towns and stuff, like under bridges and things in LA. I mean, it was actually kind of like that even before the pandemic. The pandemic made it worse, right? And now we are on the verge of 11 million people, roughly 6 million households that have 11.5 million people are on the verge of getting evicted. And that's going to start happening tonight during a pandemic. And please remember that while all this is going on, the pandemic is still happening. So this is why it's important. It's important to help these people from, to keep them first off from there being a epidemic of homelessness hitting the country in multiple states, not just California. See, that's the thing, like a lot of conservatives don't give a shit about homelessness and stuff like that because it's not as bad in the states they live in. It's not as bad in the deep south, in places like Texas and all that shit, right? Not this time, right? This is everywhere. This is, and a lot of the deep red states, right, that usually don't have that large of homeless population. I mean, every state has homeless populations, right? But most of the time, it's not that big. If you look at the numbers of example, like homeless people in Arkansas versus California, there's a major difference, and it's because California has 10 times the population of people that live in Arkansas, right? But now you're going to start seeing like a massively huge spike of homeless people in Arkansas, right? And it's going to like fuck things. And this is what's going to hit. And these are states that don't have the infrastructure or the programs to help these people, right? Because they're southern red states, and because Jesus says you're not supposed to help fucking homeless people or whatever, according to these assholes. Adversary Fanned In, how you doing? No, I didn't see their video on homelessness, but I'll check it out. Thanks for the heads up. So yeah, this is a major fucking crisis, man. And if you want to talk about like people buying phones and stuff with their stimulus checks, right? The people that did stuff like that are the people who didn't need it for their rent. Okay. I mean, yeah, okay, there was, you'll always find stories to the contrary. There will always be anecdotes of people doing dumb shit. Like, I saw a thing on Reddit where a guy went and rented a car with his stimulus check for one night so he could pretend to, like, pretend to be like a fucking gangster rapper or some shit like that, But most people, when they need, they need to pay their rent and they need to pay a bill for a car or else it's going to get repossessed or some shit like that, most people took those stimulus checks and actually did intelligent things with them, right? Surprisingly, more often than not, the thing that people bought, if you want to talk about frivolous purchases with your stimulus checks, the thing that people bought more than phones or cars with the stimulus checks was freaking firearms. That's what people bought with the stimulus checks. They went and they bought guns. So, if you want to complain about people doing stupid shit with their stimulus checks, there you go. It wasn't buying phones and cars. It was buying fucking firearms with it. Because I guess they think that they're going to go shoot the COVID or some shit. Right? I don't understand that. So yeah, man, that's why it's important. It's important because you don't want to have, I mean, what's that going to do to the economy to have 11 million homeless people? Right? Like, especially now because we have the pandemic, we're trying to get rid of the pandemic, and what ends up happening is that these people will those are people that don't end up homeless will end up moving in with their other relatives, right? Hey, Lewis, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining. So people will end up moving in with their relatives or something, so you get more people living in a household, right, together in a tight, and so that means that there's more opportunities for disease to spread amongst each other, these people, right? The people that, if you have more people living together, then more people will more opportunities for the Rona to spread around. And so now we're going to see another spike, right? Another spike, which is like it's just it's just like this cycle that's just going to keep fucking going unless we actually do something to help people to stop it. And one of the things we can do to stop it is to help people pay their fucking rent. So anyway, so let's talk about that. Okay, let's talk about that because that's going to be the main meat of our discussion, right? So there has been a federal moratorium on evictions for the last year, right? And it is going to expire tonight at 6 p.m. Right. So basically, a lot of people are going to start getting evicted, and it's not going to be good, right? It's not going to look good for the country. There are, like I said, currently about roughly 6 million households, which comes out to about 11.5 million people that are behind on rent. This is everywhere in the country. I mean, you'll see concentrations of it in the states where there's more, the population is higher, of course, New York, California, stuff like that, right? But essentially every state has this problem where there are people behind on rent, and it's gonna hit everybody hard, right? There was a bill that just on Friday that the Democrats tried to pass in the House through unanimous consent. This is where they all just kind of get up and they do a voice vote and they go, all in favor, aye, all again, opposed, nay, right? So there was a bill that came up to try to pass this to get this extended, and the Republicans voted it down. All right, no surprise there. Okay, so the thing is that the reason why it's expiring today is because it was extended a month ago. There was a case that went up before the Supreme Court a month ago where they actually voted to extend it until today. They gave it 1 month, right? And surprisingly, the people that it was a 5-4 decision, right? Remember that there is a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court right now. So the people that broke with the conservatives that broke with the rest to vote for this were surprisingly Roberts, and then also Brett Kavanaugh surprisingly voted to extend this. So it's like, okay, well, maybe the guy isn't completely fucking useless. There was a caveat though. The thing is that the Supreme Court could have extended it for as long as the CDC said it needed to be up, right? Or for whatever. They could have extended it and said, it's up to the president, it's up to the CDC, whatever. Instead, what they said is they gave it 1 month, and they said, okay, there needs to be further congressional, action to do it, right? So, maybe that was them kind of throwing a bone a little bit, because the people that actually went to, the people that actually sued to reverse this, to get rid of the, mandate, the fucking eviction moratorium, was of course a group of corporations and landlords. The people that have not been able to collect rent. And in some respect, I can understand. It's like, okay, this is their livelihood. They're not being able to make any money, right? And so and they're not really getting any help. It's like, okay, well, the place that your landlord has to eat too, right? But at the same time, it's sort of like, well, this is something that results in like can result in someone else being homeless. So it's like, okay, well, you know, and since the majority of landlords in this country are corporations anyway, it's kind of like, you know, I think we should side with the people. It's like, all right, so this corporation that owns fucking, you know, 5,000 apartment complexes and rakes in, you know, $40 million every fucking month, right? Has to go a little while without having to be able to collect that money, you know, or we kick out like fucking 11 million people onto the street. It's like, no, man, that decision should be easy to make, right? So, anyway, uh, but yeah, so that's what kind of, you know, that's the thing though, is that this is just want to make a quick comment on this. This is just another example of how capitalism is basically fucking killing us. You know, we have a pandemic, which, you know, this new fucking Delta variant or whatever is like 50 times more, you know, communicable than the normal Alpha variant, right? And it's like, you know, there are, you know, cases are going up everywhere in the entire country, especially in the deep south, in those places where people don't want to get vaccines because they think that it's, you know, Bill Gates putting a microchip inside of you or whatever because they're morons, right? So it's going up all over the place, and this is just one thing that's going to make it worse, and it's going to make it worse because it's capitalism. Capitalism is going to result in this case. This is a case where you can say capitalism is going to result in, you know, directly result in people losing their lives. You know, a lot of the criticisms you hear people when they criticize capitalism, and it's like, okay, well, it'll indirectly result in this or that, you know. It's because it puts toxic stuff in the air, blah blah blah, and then that leads to people dying, blah blah. This is going to directly result. Yeah, this is going to directly result in a measurable number of people actually losing their lives. And it's because as a country, we can't get our shit together, right? And shore up the fucking, you know, shore up the weaknesses in the system, because that's what it is. It's a weakness in the system, right? Onward to dystopia. How you doing, man? Thanks for joining. I will, of course, read all your comments at the end. That's what it is. It's a weakness in our economic system right here, where if you shut off the flow of money, right, then things start falling apart. And we really need to address that when situations like this arise where it's necessary to, you know, take certain actions for public health, right? All the money in the world isn't going to fucking help you if you're dead, okay? So, it's like a fucking no-brainer to me, you know? Would you rather have $1 million? Like, if I'm allowed to shoot you in the head, will you let me do it for $1 million? Only an idiot will like take me up on that, like, you know, on that offer, because you can't spend your money when you're fucking dead. So, you know, and this is what it is. It's like corporations and landlords basically saying, I don't care if you die. Right? So, and the Republicans in this country are helping them fucking do it by voting, you know, by fucking help letting the eviction fucking moratoriums, like, you know, expire, and by voting down, you know, legislation to address this kind of thing, right? Anyway, so moving on here, there is an article here that I wanted to share with you guys, right? I'm not going to open it. I will just, let me just copy that. Here's an article that I wanted to share with you guys. I won't go to it right now, you know, but that talks about kind of what's going on here. There was one quote in this article that was by GOP Representative Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, and it's in this article, and I want to read it to you guys, okay? The CDC order was to expire at the end of this month. They knew that in February, Democrats had the opportunity to change that. They didn't. Okay. We heard the priority, we heard the emergency, but this is not an emergency. On this day, it's a tragedy that it's this level of incompetency that we didn't take action in February, March, April, May, June, even July. So this is the GOP representative from North Carolina said this after his party voted down a bill to extend the moratorium. So just wanted to kind of bring that up because, of course, the article doesn't actually, you know, doesn't actually address that little bit of hypocrisy. You know, that kind of just goes to show it's like they're going to use it for their political gains, right? The Republicans want this to happen because if 11 million people become homeless, right, that means people are going to be pissed off when you know, they're going to be pissed off when the midterms come around, and they're going to clean up and take control of the House and Senate. So it's like, once again, just all, you know, they're not actually doing anything to help people because they don't care about people. If this guy, Patrick McHenry, right, from North Carolina, actually gave a fuck about all the people who are going to get kicked out of their houses, he would have convinced his party to actually vote to pass the law that just got proposed, that just had a vote on Friday, yesterday, in order to, you know, extend the moratorium. But he doesn't actually give a shit about that. He just wants to use it. You know, he just wants to blame it on Democrats. That's the entire fucking thing. So this is another reason why, you know, 11 million people may end up being homeless, may end up catching fucking COVID and dying, right? Because of politics, because of greed in politics. It's disturbing. It's sad, you know. And people talk about, like, you know, other countries on Earth don't have this problem. You know, there's nobody in Cuba is torpedoing fucking, you know, relief efforts to help people from not getting, you know, kicked out of their houses. That shit's not happening in Cuba. Okay, it's not happening in the Netherlands. You know, they talk about, you know, everybody talks about how, like, you know, the conservatives are always talking about how, like, socialism is evil and blah 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 blah, and even light socialism, you know, the kind of light socialism that one would see in Denmark, for example, right? But nobody in fucking Denmark is voting down, like, you know, stopping laws from getting passed to keep people from getting kicked out of their homes. That shit's not happening there, right? You know, nobody it's bullshit. Okay, it's like, no, it only happens here because we have a political party that is hell bent on keeping the pandemic going as long as fucking possible because they think it's gonna help them politically. That's what it is, right? It's kind of fucking unbelievable, man. It's really, and it's sick and disturbing and unbelievable, and people, you know, from the Republican side just completely don't understand what the fuck they're like, what they're supporting. You know, they don't understand it because it's not affecting them directly. They just want their money, right? They just want their money. They just want to walk around without a mask. They just want to go eat at fucking, like, you know, Red Lobster or whatever and not have to wear a mask or some shit like that because they think it's some fucking commie plot, right? Because Tucker fucking Carlson told them so. Because Charlie Kirk told them so. It's bullshit. America's screwed. We're screwed as a country, folks. You know, I have no faith in the United States anymore. I think we have less than 100 years, if even that. I might even put it at, you know, 40 before, like, our country just fucking, like, collapses the same way the Soviet Union did. Right? This shit is not healthy for a good political discourse like this. Anyway, there was a video by AOC that was, you know, basically expressing the same thing that Patrick McHenry said. I won't really open this either because I don't really want to watch, like, you know, let's just copy that. And I'll put that in the chat also. This is also a video by AOC. You guys can check that out later, where she just basically gets up and says the exact same things that you know, Patrick Henry said there. Patrick McHenry. You know, we knew it was coming. Nobody did shit. right? Blah 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 blah. The difference is she's trying to fucking help people. You know, she actually is trying to get something passed to keep people in their homes, while Patrick McHenry and his fucking entire political party is doing the exact opposite. So it's like, put your money where your mouth is, you know, Republicans, right? Representative Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, put your money where your fucking mouth is and try to do something about it instead of just talking shit and like stabbing us all in the back with your other fucking hand, right? Why is it that I only see, it when like I the only people in Congress that actually do anything to help people tend to be, you know, Democrats. And specifically when I say Democrats, they're the progressives like AOC, like Rashida Tlaib, all those people that like the conservatives and the Republicans and even other Democrats, even moderate Democrats, don't like them and call them commies and socialists and all that shit. You know, like for example, like what happened back in May when fucking, was it May or was it March, when Texas fucking froze to death. Everybody in Texas froze, and Ted Cruz ran away to Mexico to go chill on a beach. And you know what AOC was doing when that happened? She was raising money for people in Texas, right? People who are they're not even her political like constituents. They're not the people who voted for her, right? She gained no benefit from that at all. She went and she live streamed for like, hours straight. She ended up raising something like $5 million for the constituents of her political rival, of her opponent, right? Because why? Because she thought it would make her look good. Do you think any of those people that were the benefit of the money that she raised, she raised that money so that they can like, you know, help pay their fucking like power bills? Because some of these people came back afterwards and ended up with like power bills in the thousands of dollars after that fucking debacle. Do you think any of those people who benefited from the money she raised actually think, like, we're thankful about that? Or do you think those people instead would rather see her hung because they think she's a fucking traitor? Right? I think it's the latter. Okay. So, do you think Ted Cruz would ever go raise money for people in New York? Like, let's say a snowstorm hit New York. Do you think he's going to go raise money? Fuck no. He's not going to. You know why? You know what he would do? He would go on Twitter and he would, like, make fun of them. And he would try to blame it on, the Democratic, like, mayor or whatever of New York. What's his name? Fucking, you know what I mean? That's exactly what would happen. So, I don't know. It's like we live, like, the people, like, uh, the people who are lacking in just basic human fucking decency are the ones who actually run everything. Right? That's what it is, man. And that's exactly what we're seeing with this eviction moratorium. We're seeing what happens when sociopaths run the country. When corporations and rich people who don't give a fuck if you live or die run the country. This is exactly what happens. They kick people out of their houses during a fucking pandemic. That's exactly like what you would see. That sounds like some shit that you would hear in the Middle Ages, like if you're like reading up on like history and like during the plague of 1478, King fucking Richard the Anteater Hearted or whatever, expelled the peasants from their lands. Like that's exactly the kind of shit that I would expect to hear, right? From like, some like English lord and shit in the fucking 15th century who was like a greedy piece of shit and treated like treated the tenants on his land like they were fucking animals. That's exactly what I would expect. Anyway, so here's the thing, right? One of the things that AOC, it's actually kind of um let's see, Fat Man TV, thank you for joining. Appreciate it, man. Um so yeah, one thing that AOC says in that video that I posted the link to, she mentions that oh shit, I'm doing this on the wrong layer. Fuck it. That's on the wrong layer, but that's okay. I'll just have to deal with that later. One thing that she mentions is that there has been a large amount of money allocated to rental assistance, right? But it just hasn't been distributed effectively, right? And it's something around $42 billion that have been like set aside for these types of rental programs around the country, right? And something like, you know, only 2 billion of it has actually like been, or 3 billion of it has actually been distributed so far. So it's not like there aren't programs to help people, because there are. It's just that it's way too slow, you know. So this is another reason to extend the moratorium, to give people time to take advantage of the money that's already been allocated for these things. It's not like we need to spend more money to help people. Like $42 billion should be more than enough, right, for, you know, the majority of these people to take advantage of some of these programs. And the thing is, you're not going to get everybody. Okay, you get it. Yeah, okay, we understand. There's going to be people who are unfortunately going to end up being evicted and not going to be able to take care of the programs. And it's because some of these programs are, you know, they'll have restrictions on them for whatever reason, shit like that. And unfortunately, yeah, that's going to happen. But if we can prevent the majority of, you know, of these 6 million households from ending up homeless, I mean, we got to do something, right? So, and the thing is, it's like, so there have been programs around the country. They've just been instituted very, very badly, right? New York, for example, has had a program, you know, federally funded. They've had $2 billion even before all this. They have $2 billion from the feds in order to give rental assistance. And they have not actually been accepting applications for that until last week. They waited until the very last minute, you know, a week before the moratorium expires. Then they start accepting applications for it. It's like, how come they weren't doing this shit months ago, right? That's just one fucking example right there. In Michigan, there's $282 million from the feds. So far, only 7 million of that has actually been distributed to renters who need assistance. Right. Florida received 870 million. They've given out so far 2%. 2% of that money. So it's like, why? It's because it's not being taken seriously. And I understand there are logistical problems, there's challenges, you know. It's hard to do business when you don't have an office, when people are working from home and shit like that. Especially when you work for the state and everything's all fucked up. Right. But still, there are, you know, the money's there. Right? The people, you know, it's there. We just need to get it into the hands of the people who need it. Right. And this is the same thing all over the country. Alabama, 237 millions. They've given out 4.4 million so far. Georgia, West Virginia, and Tennessee all chose to not set up relief programs at all in 2020. Right. All of those states are run by Republican governors, by the way. So there's a lot of, you know, there is a lot of politics involved here. It just seems like red states in general really just don't give a shit about the people who live there. They don't give a fuck. You know, these are the same states where you don't get much in the way of services when it comes to, say, people who are homeless, stuff like that, you know, or welfare programs, that kind of thing. These are, you know, they don't really care about people. They don't really give a shit whether you live or die. They never really have, and they've kind of expressed this again in their, you know, in their approach to evictions, right? And it's funny because these are, you know, the Deep South, those are also the most religious states in the country. And it always kind of really blows me away that the more religious someone tends to be, the more cruel they tend to be. You know, I guess that's what Jesus would do, right? Jesus would kick you out of your house and say, get a job during the middle of a fucking pandemic. Right? I mean, help me understand this, folks. You know, why is that? Why is it that Christian, you know, just a little bit of a side tangent, why is it that Christians are such fucking assholes? all over the country. They're the ones that, the more likely you are to be, the more, religious you are, the less likely you are to be educated. The more likely you are to be like a fucking flaming racist asshole, right? The more likely you are to be a misogynist. It's because this shit, like, you're more likely to, like, be homophobic and support things like, restricting rights for gay people or trans people, shit like that. These are the people that voted against gay marriage. These are the people that are setting up fucking, like, those bathroom laws for trans people, stuff like that. Right. It's like, help me to understand this. What is it about Christianity that turns people into fucking total assholes? Right? I don't know. Is it the fundamentalism? I mean, I guess that's unfair to say because there are millions and millions of Christians out there who are not racist, who are not homophobic, right? Who actually do want to help people and keep them from, losing their houses and shit like that. So I guess it's unfair for me to say that. But what I gotta say is, like, well, where the hell are those people? What are they doing? They should be marching in the streets against this, right? They should be out there voting for progressives, for the people that actually do want to help these people, but they don't. They don't do that. Where the fuck are they? It's like, so what am I supposed to think? Right? When, this group of people who preach love and kindness and all that shit, you know, their actions reflect the exact opposite. What am I supposed to think? Sorry, I don't mean to be like, I don't mean to have an anti-Christian bias, and I really don't think I do. I think I have more of an anti-fundamentalist bias, right? But it creeps into my thinking whenever because it just seems like the same fucking people over and over and over are the ones that are the root of many of the problems in our country. Seems to come from, Christian fundamentalists. Everything from, censorship and freedom of speech, all the way down to, like, just fucking the prevalence of hate speech and bigotry, and, the predilection to not allow people to vote. I mean, it's like, it's pretty much, that this is where it's coming from. It's coming from Christianity, right? Evangelical, especially evangelical Christianity. I don't know. Should make another video on that, I guess. I made one a little while ago about hate movements about 3 or 4 weeks back I made a video about hate movements in Christianity. We should make some more. I'm preparing for another video on the origins of the alt-right. That's coming soon. That's going to overlap a little bit with Christian fundamentalism as well. Anyway, moving on here. So yeah, the thing is that there are these states, right? Plenty of programs in various states, right? California, for example, has put out a program to give you relief for 100% of your back rent. That's going to help a lot of people, but like I just said, it's kind of tough getting it into the hands of people on time before, because when you're dealing with state, there's bureaucracy, shit like that. You know what, that looks like shit. Let's undo that. I don't like how that looked. Maybe it'll look alright. Well, you know what, the thing is, when you zoom out like this, that's what it's going to look like from... Yeah, it looks fine. This is how people are going to be looking at it. So that's the thing, when you zoom way in and the line work is all shitty and stuff like that, it'll look better when the thing is complete. So I'm not going to worry about that too much. The thing is, you have to know when to just stop working a piece, because it's like you'll be, if you don't, then you'll just be sitting here like straightening out lines and getting rid of, like, little artifacts and things forever, and you'll never actually finish your illustration. Anyway, what was I talking about? Yeah, California. Sorry, California has enacted a program to pay 100% of everybody's back rent, because a lot of these programs that you see around the country, they'll pay, they're for, like, it'll be 80%, or we'll pay 50%, and then allow you to make payments, blah, 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 blah. California has recently, over the last couple of years, gotten a budget surplus of roughly $5 billion. So that money plus whatever federal funds have already been allocated are going to go together, and it's going to be used to pay 100% of somebody's back rent. So the problem with that, though, is first off, getting it into people's hands um, is a problem, right? Secondly, there's all kinds of restrictions on this because, once again, because of conservatives, there's all kinds of restrictions. So they want you to collect things like people's social security numbers, shit like that. So that means if you are undocumented, for example, you can't take advantage of these things. If you don't want to share that information, let's say you're one of these, I don't know, you're just uncomfortable sharing your personal information like your social security and your gender, shit like that, for whatever reason. If you don't want to give that information, then you can't take advantage of these programs, etc., etc. And there's other restrictions too. I'm not so sure about the one in California, but I know in other states, for example, if you have a criminal record, stuff like that, if you've been convicted of, say, a drug, if you have a drug conviction, something like that, then that's grounds for you to not be able to take advantage of these things. So there's going to be people that, get, there's going to be people who get, excluded from these programs regardless, even if it is something that pays 100%, right? So we're still going to end up with people getting kicked out, ending up homeless, or catching the Rona because of this, right? Which is kind of bullshit. Another thing is that in a lot of these states, the landlords can just decide to not take the money, for whatever reason. So, more often than not, a landlord might want to get rid of somebody for whatever reason. And usually that reason ends up being they think they can make more money renting to somebody else. Okay, this actually happened to my mom, believe it or not. There's like, for example, I don't know, most states it's different in every state. So I can only really talk about California because that's what I know about. But in California, you can only raise the rent a certain amount, every year, right? Whether it's like an X percentage of the thing, right? For most places, it comes out to roughly $25. So you'd rent a place, and I remember, like, I had an apartment years ago, and I was paying, I think when I got the apartment, it was $785, which was dirt cheap where I live. $785 is like nothing, right? And I lived there for about 5 years, and by the time I left, I was paying $900. And it was for the same space, and it was because, they're allowed to raise the rent a certain amount every year, blah, 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 right? However, if nobody's living in that place, then they can basically price the rent at whatever they want. So if somebody leaves, right, then they can put that back up on the market and they can say, okay, $2,000, or something like that. And that actually happened to my mother. She got, they manipulated her and lied to her and got her to not sign a lease, and then they kicked her out of her fucking apartment, which is bullshit. She wasn't even behind on her rent or anything. She wasn't behind on her rent. My mother was employed, was able to pay her rent fine. They just wanted to, charge more for her apartment. So they said to her, oh yeah, just go month to month. And so then she goes, okay. So she decides not to sign a lease and go month to month. And then they rent her apartment out from under her. And basically, like, they told her you have 3 days to get out. And we were like, fuck you, like, we'll sue you motherfuckers for this. Right. And then they said, okay, you have 30 days. And I was just like, yeah, well, when 30 days comes and goes, we're staying, And they basically capitulated and allowed her to stay as long as it took for her to find a new place. And that was still bullshit. We still should have sued them for that. Because they knew it. And the thing is, the reason why they capitulated, because they knew what they did was fucking illegal. Right. Because they just saw my mom, they saw some old lady that they could take advantage of. And they didn't realize we were going to fucking, like, fight back. Which is such bullshit. That kind of thing happens all the time. I mean, that's just one story. I'm sure all of you out there have encountered sleazy practices like that around the country, right? And you know these things. It's like so a lot of landlords are seeing this as an opportunity to get rid of people that they don't like, whatever reason. You know, they don't like the guy because they think he's a criminal. They don't like him because of X, Y, Z, whatever fucking reason it is, right? So, in a lot of these programs around the country, the landlord can just decide to just, you know what, I'm not taking the money, right? So I'm just going to refuse the assistance because it's like they have to agree to, you know, the rental assistance because they want to kick people out. And we're seeing all kinds of like fucking, you know, stories like that. Here's another article that, let me see here, which is really fucked up. What time is it? It's 12 o'clock. Damn, is it 12 o'clock already? Okay, let me just copy this, right? We won't actually open this one up either, but this article here by publicintegrity.org is worth a read. It definitely is very. I think there's actually a chart on there as well that shows like the amount of money that's been allocated versus what's actually been released to people in various states. It doesn't have it for every state though, so that's why I didn't really want to open it. But yeah, so that's another fucked up thing. So even if you do qualify, you know, even if you do tick all the boxes, you're not, you know, you're not an undocumented person and you don't have a criminal record, all this other shit, your landlord could just decide that he just doesn't like you and kick you out, which is fucking, that's bullshit. A moratorium on the federal level prevents that from happening as well. Right. Unfortunately, that's, you know, some people are going to get fucked up because of that. Right. Let's see. There was another one that I wanted to show you guys here because we're also seeing, you know, besides all of this stuff, all these problems, right? It really does seem that there are a certain, you know, it's basically the Republicans in this country really kind of want to keep the pandemic going. It really seems like they do, you know. These are, you know, the people that have been losing their minds over vaccine mandates, you know, passing laws around the country that, for example, making it so that you can't require a vaccine for mandate for like your kid to go to school, that kind of thing, right? We did kind of a whole live stream on that about 2 weeks ago, so I'm not going to go too much into that, you know, like, but it's definitely a thing that's happening here, you know, where we're seeing, there was something like 7 states now that have passed laws against either mask mandates or vaccine passports or whatnot. You know, just yesterday on July 30th in Florida, Ron DeSantis signed an executive order that said banned schools from establishing mask mandates, right? So basically it leaves it up to the parent to decide if your kid gets to wear a mask or not, right? Well, the problem is that so this new variant, you know, this fucking what is it, the Delta variant or whatever the fuck it's called, right? Is incredibly contagious, right? It's as contagious as chickenpox, apparently. You know, so you only really need to stay in a room with somebody for something like 20 minutes before you get a sufficient viral load. And the problem is that even when you are, you know, vaccinated, right? You got your vaccine, you can still spread this around, right? Because what happens is that, you know, apparently the variant here doesn't take root in your lungs the same way if you're unvaccinated, right? But it'll still be in your throat, it'll still be in your nose, and when you're talking and shit like that, you're still spreading like water droplets out there, right? Aerosolized water droplets, right? And if you don't wear a mask, then you don't have a barrier in order to keep that shit in, right? And it can easily spread around. And that's what's going to happen to all these, like, you know, so now you want to send kids back to school, right? And I can understand that because They want to send kids back to school so that parents don't have to stay at home and take care of their kids, so parents can go and get jobs. That's what they want to do, right? And it gets the economy going and blah blah blah, and Ron DeSantis' friends get rich. That's what they want to do. Okay, so that's why opening the schools is a major imperative. Well, you want to open the schools, but you don't want them to take precautions against spreading this disease, right? And the excuse is that, well, kids don't get sick and die from this disease, even though they do, right? Something like 400 children have died, 400 children, which, if you look at the number of people who have died, which is what, 611,000 people, something like that, right? That's a very small number of people who are children, but still there shouldn't be any children that die, number one, right? And it just shows you that, when you're under 18, you're not invulnerable. Yes, you can die. And if you don't die, you can end up going to the hospital, and that costs a shitload of money. So, you end up staying in the hospital for 3 or 4 days. That can run you $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. It's expensive as hell to to get a hospital bed and to stay in the hospital for like weeks. Every single day is like $500, something like that. And even the best insurance in the goddamn country isn't going to cover 100% of that, right? So, do you want to do that? Even if you live, you can end up going into medical debt, because your insurance is not going to your insurance isn't going to pay 100% of like a 7 week fucking, or is it 7 weeks? I don't even know if it's that long, but they're not going to pay 100% of that shit. You're going to end up paying a significant number unless you just have the best insurance on earth, right? And then you have long COVID, I'm sure you guys have all heard about that, right? Like, the people that get the they get this and they survive it, and they have symptoms that persist for months and months, and they don't know if they're ever going to go away. Some people lose their sense of taste, like, permanently gone. Can you imagine that? You get sick and then you can never taste anything ever again. Some people get that brain fog going. Apparently that's a big thing where they just can't think, and it fucks them up, and they're just like frustrated because their brain is all like, they don't have the same cognitive ability anymore, right? Some people are winded when they try to walk up a flight of stairs months after recovering, right? They caught it like months and months and months ago, and even now their lung capacity is like permanently like crippled, and they have to, just walking down the street fucks them up, right? There are people out there who have caught it multiple times. That's another thing too. It's like everybody, it's not like other diseases where you expect, okay, well, I caught it, now I'm immune. No, man. There are people who have caught it multiple times and survived it. Can you imagine the kind of damage that does to your body, right? So these are the things that are putting people at risk, right? They're putting children at risk, and even though you're a child, you're most likely going to survive it. That doesn't mean you should put the kid at risk anyway. It's idiotic. It's idiotic to do this. So these are the people that, the same people that are voting down, the eviction moratoriums, right, in Congress, right? The same people that aren't distributing the money that's already been allocated, or putting all kinds of ridiculous restrictions on it. It's like they don't want to do anything about it. It's like we know that this shit's happening. It's like the same thing with like climate change. I guess this is just how conservatives address problems, is they just ignore them till they go away. Is that what it is? Is it because it's a problem that is going to cost money, so they don't want to, so they just want to ignore it like their children? That's what you do when you're a child. You just pretend it didn't happen. You pretend there's a problem. Oh, I got to do my homework tomorrow, or I'm going to get an F. Fuck it. You just pretend it didn't happen and you go play Nintendo. Like, seriously, this is our country is being run by children right here who don't want to take responsibility, right? And they don't want to take the steps that, to mitigate these problems. Because why? Because it's going to cost money. Because it's going to take work. That's what it is. Right? People are fucking lazy and they don't want to work, right? especially conservatives. Conservatives are lazy as fucking hell. That's the other thing that we all got to remember. Everybody, like the conservatives and Republicans and shit always like to talk shit about how much you have to take personal responsibility and I work for a living, blah, 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 blah. Yet they seem to do every fucking thing they can to not actually do any work, to not actually enact any solutions that requires any sacrifice at all. Right? It's kind of, I don't know. That's what we are in America, folks. We say one thing, we do the opposite. There was a South Park episode like that once, I remember. You know, that's what it means to be an American, is to be a professional hypocrite. You know. Anyway, folks, there is a thing that I wanted to show you guys here that I thought would actually kind of contribute to the discussion a little bit. Right, so this is from nashp.org, National Academy for State Health Policy. Right, which I don't really know much about these people, so I'm hoping I'm not just like, hyping like a fucking racist group or something. But as far as I can tell, they seem to be all about, health policy, stuff like that. And this is state lawmakers who have submitted bills to ban COVID-19 vaccine mandates and passports. Hang on a second, I gotta get something to drink. Okay. I got my little fridge in the back here, but anyway. That's good. Okay. So here's a little map where you can see a breakdown, right, of different laws that have been passed in different states. Let me put this down in the chat for you guys as well, because I think this is a nice little resource, right? So you can see here, this is employer mandates, right? So everywhere in the country, with the exception of these gray states here, right? Everywhere in the country there have been bills passed to limit employer mandates, right? Or introduced, right? So you can kind of mouse over it here. So it says here in Wyoming, one bill prohibiting employer vaccine mandates, 2 bills prohibiting, and this is Minnesota, 2 bills prohibiting employer discrimination based on vaccination status, 4 bills prohibiting employer vaccine mandates. So you can see this is the breakdown, right, of all the different bills that are being introduced in each state, what they do. This one requires long-term care facilities require COVID-19 vaccine documentation form from employees, right? Another 3 bills prohibiting employer vaccine mandates. So you can kind of see the actions that are being taken around the country. And it's overwhelmingly, the actions are to prevent basic fucking measures to stop this pandemic, right? And then you can see these are the states where it's been enacted, these 7 states, here. And they actually have a list of all the laws here. So if you can read through them, these are the ones that have actually been enacted in which states. Arizona, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Dakota, Iowa, Texas, whatever, right? So you can read through it, right? So then school mandates, almost every state, right? A lot of different places have actually enacted these, right? So you can see, not all the states here. Some of them have 0, right? Most of them have bills that have been introduced. The majority of states have bills that have been introduced. These ones here are where it's been enacted, right? So here in, Montana, a law has now been passed saying that you can't prevent someone who has not been vaccinated from going to school, right? And, that's fine. The thing is, there was already laws in place, because there are some people that can't get vaccinations, right? Either they have a religious exemption, for whatever reason, or they're immunocompromised and the doctor says not to do it. There were already laws in place to handle those cases. So these laws are for people, these are for the fucking MAGA hat people that don't want to get vaccines because they think Bill Gates is going to put a microchip inside of them, and they think the vaccine is going to shed or whatever and infect other people, which is like ridiculous because they think it's like a fucking like thing to genetically alter us put in place by Jewish space aliens or some shit. That's what this is for. That's what all of these that have been enacted here. That's what it's for. It's to appeal to the fucking QAnon people, right? The people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, like Alex Jones, like Lauren Boebert, because the fucking lunatics are in charge now, right? This is the exact opposite of what we should be doing as a country. Here's vaccine passports. Okay, so you can see bills. These are all the states that have passed laws basically saying if you're a business, all these yellow ones, if you're a business, you have to serve people that will put your life in danger. That's what that says, okay? So much for fucking states' rights, You'll notice a lot of these places are in the South, you know. A lot of Florida, Arizona, Tennessee, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma. That's the deep South down there, right? These are all places where, you're supposed to have the freedom to do whatever you want. The state is supposed to be able to, be the one that, states' rights, blah, 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 right? And, if you run a business, if you own a fucking taco shop or some shit, or a fried chicken place, or like, a barbecue or whatever, right? And somebody comes in, you're supposed to be able to say, tell them to get lost for whatever reason you want. No shoes, no shirt, no service. Remember that shit? You ever see those signs around? We reserve the right to refuse service for anyone for any reason. You know, that's what that is. But no, I guess you don't have that right anymore. You're not allowed to not serve somebody if they walk into your place without a mask on during a goddamn pandemic, coughing and sneezing and hacking all over the fucking place, right? You're not allowed to tell them to go outside and put on a mask. You have to serve them now, according, or what? You're gonna get fined, right? Possibly arrested, right? Because the fucking, snowflake MAGA assholes can't fucking handle doing anything that helps people, you know? And that's the thing, is that they always turn around and they always try to blame the left for being snowflakey. Oh, you're so, you're all a bunch of like little, sensitive snowflakes that you force people to, these are the people that complained and shit when like that one cake company, got sued because they wouldn't because they discriminated based on somebody's sexual orientation and they wouldn't make a cake for gay people. These are the people that lost their fucking minds over that. Right. Well, I guess now, they'll have to force them to make a cake for some fucking COVID infected people that'll walk in there, I guess that's the difference. I guess it's okay to kick people out if they're gay, but not if they're infected with a disease that'll fucking kill you. It doesn't make any sense, It's ridiculous, folks. This is what we're dealing with as a country, right? I mean, they don't want vaccines, right? They don't want to wear masks, right? They don't like the lockdowns. Well, how the fuck else are you supposed to fight a pandemic if you don't take the fucking vaccine for it, right? If you don't prevent it from infecting you by wearing a mask, if you don't stop to you know, if these are the only ways that you can fight a pandemic, right? You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna make, I don't know what color their buttons are, but I'm gonna make their buttons the same color as their hair, because that just seems right to me, and I don't care if it's not show accurate. Anyway, so those are the ways. Those are really the only ways we have to fight a vaccine. To fight a pandemic, is to either take a vaccine, right, or to prevent it from spreading around. They don't want to do any of these things. So what the fuck do they want to do about it? Nothing. They don't want to do anything. They don't. They want no precautions whatsoever, and whoever gets it just gets it and dies. That's what they're doing, right? I guess they're just leaving it up to God or whatever. Seriously, it doesn't make any sense, And the thing is, I know it's not all of them. There was a video even last week. We showed that video when I was here with my friend Raph of the governor of Alabama basically saying it's time to blame the fucking unvaccinated people for stuff. And she's right. She's right. She's probably going to lose her next election because she came out and said that. Right. Because she has the audacity to stand against the fucking conservative fucking hive mind. It's ridiculous, folks. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand how anybody can see this stuff and not get angry and then try to blame it on the people that are actually trying to help them. You know, they go around, they're talking about, like go on conservative Reddit. You know, check out some of the conservative subreddits, and it's 24/7 people blaming fucking sorry, Freudian slip, not Obama, blaming Biden for stuff like this. Like I guess Biden had I guess there was a plan to send vaccine teams to people's doors and stuff, which it looks like that's not going to happen. Stuff like that. There's people blaming him for that, and there's people like there's conspiracy theories about vaccines and how like all this ridiculous unfunded bullshit. And then there's other people that just take the well, it's my body route, and I can do what I want with my body. I guess you're also allowed, doing what you want with your body also extends to putting other people in fucking danger with it. Right? It's I don't understand. I don't have any faith in our country anymore, folks. I don't. I really do not think that we're gonna last very long, because we can't even, and if we can't even get our shit together to do the right thing for a pandemic, right? For a problem that visibly, has measurable impact on people's current lives right now, over 600,000 people dead, right? If we can't even do that shit, how are we going to solve climate change? How are we going to do that? How are we going to solve homelessness? Right? How are we going to address these multiple problems that we have around the country? The lack of, ending of biodiversity in this country, right? I just read a thing the other day about how because of these heat domes that are over the Pacific Northwest, that wild salmon populations have dropped by like more than 80% because of this. And they're saying probably within 5 years there will be no more wild salmon in the ocean anymore, right? Salmon will not be extinct because we have salmon farms. All right, no more salmon. And if you go to the fucking grocery store and wild caught salmon and it all tastes so good, now you're going to be eating farming salmon because those will be the only fucking fish that are left are ones in farms. If we can't even like how are we going to solve that? How are we going to prevent all the fish from dying, right? How are we going to get people jobs when everything becomes automated in, the next 20 years? When even jobs like taxi drivers or I guess Uber drivers now, right? Or like delivering food, when you can't even get a job delivering fucking food to people because a robot's doing it. How are we supposed to like save that? When you can't get a job at McDonald's because it's all automated, right? I mean, let alone any other professional fucking job. And then how long before that gets into other professional jobs that you require? How long before AI is taking over things like project management, right? It's already like gonna hit that point where even developers, pretty soon you won't even need human developers. Like, of course there always will be human developers, right? But what company is gonna hire you when a robot can like make a video game or a fucking iPhone app way faster for 10% of the money that they pay a human being, right? That's already happening with quality assurance. That's already happening, right? For you, those of you guys who don't know, that's what I used to do. I used to be a QA guy, right? I've actually moved on to other work, right? I don't do it anymore because it's all automation. It's all automation, right? And within 10, 15 years, all of the QA you won't even need to write automation scripts anymore. It'll just basically be a program that takes your website, scans through it automatically, right, using an algorithm, right, creates the test scripts based on and finds things that you'll put in some parameters, right, maybe you'll have to like put in tags saying click this, click that, blah blah blah, right? And it'll just create all of the shit automatically, and it'll run it flawlessly every time and identify issues. You won't even need, so a team of QA people that right now, say you have a team of 5 QA guys at your software place, you'll only need 2 after that. One guy to like manage the automation, and then the other guy to like do context sensitive stuff, right? Things that a computer can't identify. You know, this is incorrect grammar, some shit like that, whatever. Right. That's it. And how long before that happens? How long before programmers start losing their jobs because a robot can program it? Right. This is shit that's coming. This is all coming within, the next 20 to 30 years, right? I'll be too old by that point. I'll be old and retired. I'll have made my money. I already bought my house. I'll be fine. What about all you young kids out there? You think you're going to be able to get a job in 20 years? Do you think your job is going to survive the fucking AI apocalypse? No, you're screwed. Are they going to help you? Right? If they can't even get their shit together to help people during a pandemic, do you think that they're going to give a fuck if you can't get a job in 20 years? You better start saving your money. You better start buying some fucking Bitcoin or something, right? And maybe start mining some Bitcoin and getting some money saved, because economically it's not going to look nice, especially in, another 20 years when the fucking shit starts running out, right? And it becomes like harder and harder to extract resources from this country because everything keeps burning down because of global climate change, right? That's what's going to happen, folks. That's what's going to happen. The world is going to I'm probably going to kick the bucket around the year 2055. Right around there. Every year after that for me will be a bonus year. Right, because that'll be roughly my life expectancy. Right. Around that time, around 2055, this country, this world is going to be fucked up. It's going to be fucked up. And it won't be because of people like me, right? Because, I drive an electric car. Well, my wife does, right? I recycle shit like that. I fucking do the best I can personally to reduce my carbon footprint, stuff like that. But it's not something that we can do on the individual level, right? The small little things I do myself personally to try to help the environment, right, adds up to nothing. It's like we need, 5 billion people to do all of these things. And it's not even individual people that contribute most of the carbon to the atmosphere, most of the pollution to the oceans, right? Or whatever, right? It's fucking giant mega corporations that do it. It's giant fisheries that go around in China and just troll the entire fucking ocean and pull up everything. And those are the ones that, they kill fucking 20,000 sharks a month or whatever. Stuff like that because they want, shark fin soup or whatnot, It's that kind of thing. It's like companies and corporations that are making money polluting and spewing their toxic shit into the air and killing off the animals, and pretty soon they're not even going to need to employ normal human beings to do it. It's going to be Blade Runner. That's what we all thought, like when I was a kid, I thought the future was going to be like Star Trek, and we're going to be flying around flying around in spaceships, and there's going to be robots and shit, and Earth was going to be nice and clean, and everybody's going to be cool, and blah 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 blah. No, that's not what's going to happen, folks. It's going to be Blade Runner. Did you see Blade Runner 2049? Entire armies of orphans and shit digging through garbage just to survive, while other people are so incredibly fucking rich that they have super technology that looks like magic. That's what the Earth is going to be like. Okay, so get ready, start saving your money. Maybe all those crazy prepper people that are saving up years worth of food and shit, maybe they got the right idea, and it's not coming because of it's not going to be the rapture or whatever that fucking destroys the earth. It's going to be human greed. Human greed and conservatives. All right, rant over. Sorry. Long ass fucking rant is now over. It is now 12:37. Let's read some of the comments from you guys. Thank you for hanging out with me while I just ranted and raved like an insane person for fucking the last half hour. But I don't know, man. It pisses me off. It's sad and it pisses me off, you know, because I don't want this to happen, man. I want the Earth to survive me, you know. When I die, I want to be able to look back and think that everything's gonna be all right for other people, you know. Even if I don't have children, you know, which I would like to have children, but even if I don't have children, even if I never like, you know, have a child or whatever, I would still like, you know, for my, you know, my niece, my nephew, right? I have a niece and a nephew. I would like the Earth to be good for them, and just for other people in general. Just I would just like humanity to not suck. And that's doesn't look like that's what's gonna happen. So anyway, let's read some of the comments from you guys here. Hang on, let me just finish coloring that little portion in. Let's see. Going up to the top, Chulo Mudfoot. Well, we already kind of answered Chulo's comment there at the very beginning of the stream there. Adversary Fandon, did you see the PragerU's video on the homeless? Oh yeah, you talked about that. I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I have not seen it yet, but I try to avoid PragerU because it's like obvious bullshit, you know. And the thing is, there are channels that out there on YouTube that all they do is talk about Prager University, and it's easy. It's an easy target, but yeah. And plus, they piss me off. I don't know. I'll check it out. Maybe you know, maybe I could make a response to a few of those or something like that. Just Dennis Prager in general is just a fucking. He's a grifter. That's what he really is. Right? He's like a racist fucking grifter that, I don't know, should go back to his dumbass radio show. Anyway, but yeah, I'll check it out. Lewis the Hedgehog. I just read an article from Politico talking about the people in the Lake of the Ozarks, that these people make me ashamed to be the same species as them. What's going on with the people in the Ozarks? You have a link to that? Because I want to check that out. I know that traditionally is like, the Ozarks are kind of some of the poorest people in the country live there. So I imagine that they're very super anti-vax, probably. Right? I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong, huh, Lewis? Are they very anti-vax and very anti-mask mandate, stuff like that? I wouldn't doubt it. Wouldn't doubt that at all. Science is not a very, you know, science is very contested amongst these sort of super isolated hillbilly populations. So, but yeah, dude, if you wouldn't mind sharing that article, I'd love to read it. Let's see. Onward to dystopia. Considering the time it takes to become inoculated, if you haven't gotten a vaccine by now, it's probably too late to avoid getting Delta. It's coming for you. See, the thing is, even if you get one shot, that's still better than nothing, right? So what do they say? Like, if you get one shot, it reduces their chances of catching it by something like 40% or whatever. You know, I think that might have applied only to the old variant, though. But still, it's like, you know, I don't know. I think even that is better than not fucking catch it. So, dude, go get it. If you haven't been vaccinated yet, man, people, what are you waiting for? Go get it. If you need any other reason, just read about the Delta variant and the bad shit that it can do to you. And just read about long COVID. That scares the shit out of me. Like, you know, and the other thing that scares me is that even though, like, I'm vaccinated, there's still a chance I could catch it. You know, because that's the thing, is that vaccinations, when they're not 100% effective. You know, they say most of these, like one of the vaccines, the one that you only get the one shot for, was only 86% effective, something like that. And then the other two, the Pfizer and AstraZeneca, those are higher. You know, that's why I opted for the Pfizer one, because it had the highest reported effective rate, you know, of something like, you know, but still, even that one, you know, let's look that up, just so that I'm not talking out of my ass. What is the, let's see, Pfizer vaccine effective rate. Right. Let's see. How effective are the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines? So they're 94 to 95% effective for the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, right? So what about the let's see. Then there was one more that J&J Jensen. Um, that was the one that was 86%. The Johnson and Johnson one was 86% for people who are okay. But I see it's if you're 65 and older, it goes down. So still, 95% is not 100%. You know, so that's another thing. So there are cases of people who have gotten the vaccine and have still, you know, been hospitalized. It's just a very, 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 very small number, and it's something like, you know, 99.3% of all the people in the hospital are people who have not been vaccinated. Right. So that's something to keep in mind. But still, that scares the shit out of me. That, you know, there's still that little small chance that you can catch that, and then you can, you know, after that, not be able to walk up a flight of stairs for the rest of your life. Right? Even if you don't die. That scares the shit out of me. So I still, you know, they recently in Los Angeles um, put the mask mandate back on for everybody that goes indoors at a place of business. I always wear the mask. There are some people that I'm seeing even now that aren't wearing it, you know, or whatever, and store owners and shit are just not caring and they're not enforcing it. And I always fucking wear it, you know. The thing about the mask is that the mask doesn't protect other people. I mean, it doesn't protect you, it protects other people. That's what it does. So, you know, if a guy next to you is not wearing his mask, you know, your mask is, you know, what you're doing by wearing a mask is you're preventing water droplets from your mouth from going into the atmosphere. But if he's not doing it, he's still spreading his shit all around all over the place. So it's like the mask is not as effective when it's just one person fucking wearing it, you know. It's like everybody has to wear it, and that's how it fucks. It's fucking us up. It's fucking us up that these people don't want to like take basic fucking precautions because they're selfish little children. And you know, when you hear people say shit like, well, you know, masks don't protect you, or when they say things like, I already caught it once, whatever, or you know, it's ineffective to wear masks. It's because it protects others, you know. And by not wearing it, you're putting other people in danger, right? Because the other thing we, you know, still need to remember is that most people that have been exposed to these things don't develop symptoms. You can be asymptomatic, and you can be vaccinated, exposed, and be asymptomatic and be spreading around, you know, exposing other people to COVID. And you yourself wouldn't get sick because you got vaccinated, and you could still be spreading it to people. So it's like, that's why we got to wear this mask, you know? This wouldn't have happened. This COVID fucking Delta variant wouldn't have developed in the fucking first place if people just would have like socially distanced and wore the goddamn mask like they were supposed to. This is why it developed. It developed because it kept spreading around, and vaccine and like viruses and shit, you know, they have very fast, you know, breeding breeding times, and when you have lots of generations, then that's when like variants develop because it's evolution, right? And what happened is that, you know, the one that spreads around the most is the one that outbreeds the other ones, and that's why the Delta variant is so fucking contagious, because it outbred all the other variants. You know, this is evolution at work. So anybody out there that doesn't believe in fucking evolution, just look at COVID-19, for crying out loud. There's proof right there. So anyway, it's frustrating, man. It's frustrating when people are just like, you know, doing the opposite of what needs to be done, right? Anyway, Adversary Fandom 2 had my final shot today. Right on. Congratulations, man. I hope you're not in too much pain. When I got my shots, it hurt like a motherfucker. Not gonna lie, it was painful as hell, but you know, it's worth it, man. So, congrats. I hope that other people follow your example. Let's see. Fat Man TV. Next up, Ted Cruz gets to perv on your wife on your wedding night. Hashtag Braveheart. Yeah, that's kind of what happens when you that's a good example, man, of a society where the people in charge just like, you know, treat their treat their citizens like they're animals, you know. So apparently that was a real thing. You know, I don't know how historically accurate Braveheart was, right? And I'm sure there's probably some poetic license taken with it, but apparently that actually was a real thing, and not just in England. It was a thing that happened in the Middle East as well, like stretching back into ancient times. You know, the ruler would be able to just basically have sex with whoever he wanted anytime he felt like it. So, yeah, don't you love living in a democracy? I don't know. Hopefully, it'll never go back to being like that again, but I got a suspicion that after society collapses in 50 years, we might be coming back to some of that. You know, now might be a good time to invest in a nice crossbow and some fucking football pads for when like Mad Max comes around in 50 years. So that's what it's gonna be, folks. Anyway, let's see here. Fat Man TV. People who don't have a lease and share rent with others can't get financial help, so if they're not on speaking terms for whatever reason with the leaseholder, are pretty much shit out of luck. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be difficult for people, man. I really think, because there are, you know, that's another thing. It's like, yeah, if you don't really have that support system of friends and relatives, life is hard enough, you know. Life is hard enough when you're not on speaking terms with your family, that kind of thing. So it's going to be even worse now when people are just like, I mean, shit. I know, you know, multiple people, just speaking anecdotally, like multiple people who are either not on speaking terms with their family or who live in other states, and it would be like or it would be a financial burden to go back to their family. That's another one too. You know, like maybe their parents and stuff are on limited incomes, and if they have to like move in with them, it'll be like, you know, it's gonna end up costing money, blah blah blah. And I don't know. I wish I could help those people. I don't have an answer. I really don't. I mean, me myself personally, I have friends and relatives where, you know, I could go stay with them if the worst were to happen to me. But lots of people don't. You know, I have savings. I have savings if shit happens. If I lose my job again, I've got savings. I could probably live for probably 2 years at this point without working if I had to, right? And it's just because of my savings and my wife's income. A lot of people out there don't have that. A lot of people out there live paycheck to paycheck. And this is not just something because of the pandemic. It's been like that for years because of the shortcomings of our economic system, right? You know, for years, even before this, even before the financial crash in 2008, which we kind of really never recovered all the way from. You know, I mean, we recovered from it, but not really. You know, millions of people lost fucking millions of dollars because of that and never really got it back. You know, we had a jobless recovery from that. So it's like, yeah, people that are in their 30s now who grew up through all this stuff, right? Who have never actually been able to get the kinds of jobs that people in my generation were able to. You know, like now they're running through another crisis that affects them financially. I mean, and everybody wonders like how come millennials aren't buying houses? You know, how come they're not buying diamonds? How come they're not, you know, they're killing the XYZ, you know, they're killing this, they're killing tourism, they're not going on tour. It's because they don't have any money. They don't have any money because the economy has been shitty for most people in the country for years now at this point. And they're not going to do anything to help, you know. The majority of the states in this country are run by conservatives, and they're not doing jack shit to help anybody. So that's how it's going to stay. It's kind of unfortunate. Let's see. Moving on, moving on. Lewis a Hedgehog. If Republicans want to keep the pandemic going, it will kill their own base. So I've heard some theories recently because there has been a little bit of turnaround on conservative, especially I wouldn't, some Republicans out there who are kind of encouraging people to get vaccinated. You saw it on Sean Hannity, for example. You saw last week when we showed the governor of Alabama talking about that. There has been a little bit of pushback, and I've heard some comments from people saying that they think it's because their base is, basically going to. Wait, did I do this on the wrong layer here? Okay, shit, I did. All right, that has to be. Yeah, I did that all on the wrong layer. You know what we're gonna do? We're just going to. Let's not do that yet. I was just gonna merge both of these, but not yet. Let's not merge them yet. Let's just keep it on that layer. Anyway, um, and they're thinking that, well, because when the next election comes around, then it may impact it because enough people will be dead, and that's going to shorten their voter base. I don't really think that's going to happen. You know, I think there is some concern among them that people like may be blaming them for the pandemic. Because they see these types of the things that they're doing, the things like how they're voting down, for example, mask mandates, right? They're preventing, you know, this eviction moratorium from going through, stuff like that. I think that they might be seeing that and thinking like, okay, well, the messaging is backfiring on us, right? Because the thing is that even though they are a very local minority, they're still a minority. Most of the people in the country support mask mandates. You know, most of the people in the country support, getting stimulus packages out, for example. Right. I think they may be calculating it like that, and that's why they might be turning around, because they might be thinking like, okay, well, people are going to blame this on us, and they're doing everything they can to try to blame it on, you know, Biden and the Democrats. Like there's conspiracy theories out there now that Dr. Fauci created the COVID vaccine, right? Through his funding of the lab in Wuhan. Basically, it goes like this: he funded the lab in Wuhan. They did the research that added, you know, transmissibility to humans, right? They did the research that did it there, and then they leaked it, and so he's responsible for that, right? They're trying to do shit like that because they want to basically shift blame onto Democrats, onto their political opponents, stuff like that. And that's great for their base. All this really does is jimmy their base up. It's not enough to basically win elections, but most of the states out there are gerrymandered in such a way that they don't need a majority. They don't, like in Alabama and Texas and shit like that. They don't need majorities in these states. They only need a certain majority in certain key areas that are highly conservative. So, so I don't know. There might be a little bit to that. There might be this. I mean, there may be some worry that, hey, if enough people die in these key areas, we're going to start losing elections. I could see that being a thing, a concern. So, but I think it may also have a lot to do with just the public perception in general, that people may, that they might start blaming the pandemic in general on conservatives. I mean, let's not forget the shit happened under Trump. You know, it's probably why Trump lost the election. Let's not forget that too. It definitely, if not the reason why, it contributed a lot to it. So maybe they might be saying like, hey, if this is still going when the election comes around, people are still going to blame it on us. I don't know. There's a lot of calculations to it. I mean, who can really say what the strategists are thinking about? But anyway, let's see. Moving on. Onward to dystopia. The plan is to get back to work, pretend everything is normal so we can keep making money. I dread to think how our social Darwin society will deal with people suffering from long COVID. The people who suffer will be invisible and voiceless, so of course they ignore these problems. Yeah, that's what I think. I think you're right. I think it really is just, you know, the plan, the conservative plan for COVID is just to ignore it the same way that they ignore everything. Right. Same way they ignore climate change, the same way they ignore, you know, people who, you know, who need economic assistance, right? You know, if it's not a thing they can, like, if it's not a thing that they can m- make money by exploiting, they ignore it. You know, if it's not a thing that they can blame on other people, like if they could blame Islamic terrorists on it, then that's what they'd be doing. Right? You know, if they could blame black people for COVID, then that's what they'd be doing. They'd be and that's kind of what, you know, so what they're doing is they're passing laws to specifically to keep it going, you know, to prevent shit, because this is what gets their base up, you know. They're not actually doing anything to prevent it, to limit it, to put it back. You know, what would really help people right now is to actually enforce mask mandates, stuff like that. If we could just keep that, you know, if we could keep the number of transmissions down for, like, you know, a month, right? Then we could start relaxing all of this shit. If we could keep that, if we could keep the number of transmissions down, if we could up the number of vaccines, we could end this shit in like a month. It could be over with completely. And we could start exporting the vaccines to other countries, and the conservatives can be happy because then they'll make a shitload of money. But they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that because they've trained their fucking constituents to just be perpetually outraged at everything. Right. Well, this is what fucking happens when, you know, you exploit people's anger. Is that oftentimes that anger gets misplaced. So I don't know. It's fucked up. It's to the detriment of us all. That's the real shitty thing about it, folks. Like, anyway, getting close to 1 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to end this. Just to let you guys know that I do read all of your comments. I'm afraid I'm not gonna have enough time to read all of them right now, but I do go back and I read every comment. So please comment away, folks. I do see some new names in here. Thank you guys for joining. Fatman TV, thank you for joining. Job Carroll, I have not seen you before. Thank you for joining. You're great. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to end it now. I think I would usually go a little longer because there are a lot of comments, but it's we're hitting the 2 hour mark, and I gotta end. Sorry, guys. But thank you guys for joining. Thank you also for listening to my my half-hour rant there. Wasn't planning on doing that, but you know, this stuff, the emotions, man, it pisses me off. It pisses me off to see just, you know, how bad shit is going and how illogical people act. I don't know. It's fucked up. Anyway, but I'm gonna have to go through my ending speeches here. So, thank you all so much for joining. If you like what I do and you want to support me, I do have a Patreon, so I can put this down here. This is my Patreon. And I actually have a couple of Patreon subscribers now. So thank you guys. Those of you who have subscribed to my Patreon, I really appreciate it. I have really cheap rates here. You know, for $1 a month, I'll give you early access. I'll give you a shout out. For $10, I'll make a video on your choice, or I'll draw something for you. And from $20, I'll give you everything. I'll give you something from my SD store and everything from these levels here. And, you know, I'll come up with some better rewards too. But yeah, if you want to support me, if you like what I do, please consider donating there. If you want to just do a one-time donation, if you don't like Patreon, I also have an SD shop. This is where I sell stuff. So please check me out on SD. I sell prints, stuff like that. This is actually a print that we did during the live stream. This is, you know, we did a live stream of this, of us drawing this. So that's where that is. Here's another one. This is a Lovecraft character. This one is actually very popular. I sell a lot of these. This is Azathoth at the center of the universe there. So these are 11 by 17 prints that I make. I use coffee and stuff like that, and they kind of look like leather when they come out. And so yeah, if you like what I do and you want to support me, please consider buying something from my SD shop there. If you like my artwork and you want to see more of it, I have a DeviantArt site here that I post all of my artwork on. So you can see more there. You can download all this stuff for free. This was another piece that we just finished in the last streams a couple weeks ago. So this is where all the stuff goes. It goes up here, and you can like download this stuff, you know, if you want to, for whatever reason. So please check me out on that if you like that. I also have a webcomic. In fact, let me just go to my webcomic here. .com. This is Hwanja.com, fun for the whole stupid family. I haven't updated this in like 2 weeks, but I have one that I'm almost finished with, so there will be another update to here probably by tomorrow. Anyway, Hwanja.com, it's got ninjas and demons and ninjas fighting demons, stuff like that. And if you want to see me talk about stuff that is not political, this is my other channel, UCD Videos. I do video game streams occasionally. I do a lot of toy unboxings. I just did a review of the new Masters of the Universe Revelations show, which, if you haven't seen it, it rules. You know, this is the one that Kevin Smith did on Netflix. It's really good. Go watch Masters of the Universe Revelation. It's awesome. So yeah, if you want to see me talk about stuff that's not political, you know, movies and toys and video games and stuff, you can check me out on UCD Videos. Anyway, folks, really appreciate you all joining. Thank you so much, Adversary Fandon. Thank you, Lewis a Hedgehog. Great to see you as always. Thank you, Chulo Mudfoot. You know, even if we have different opposing views, I still appreciate you coming on and watching. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Fatman TV. Great to see you on here. You know, always good to see new people. And onward to dystopia, as always. Great to see you. And thank you, Job Carroll. Really great to see you there as well. So, really appreciate all of you guys joining. And I will be back next Saturday at either 11 or 11:30 a.m. Not exactly sure yet, Pacific Standard Time. And we will continue on with our little Smurf versus Oompa Loompas war. It's coming along. I should probably fill in all of the stuff down here before I start detailing things. You know, adding shadows and stuff or whatnot. But coming along, I think it's looking good. So anyway, folks, I really, really appreciate it. You guys are great. And I will see you all next week. Thank you so much. Adios.